Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats, continuing my video series of the correspondence team match played between my video lessons group at chess.com versus CARPE DIEM, and this was played on board 173. We have about low 1600 rating versus high 1400 rating. Our man is Rock 2907. Let's have a look. So this is what we call the Catalan system, or the Catalan opening, and look what chess.com is doing. I didn't hit the back button. It's been doing this the last couple days. Please get version 3 out here quick. Okay. And here, I'm sure this position has occurred thousands of times in games, and one can find a proper continuation in chess databases, chess books. I mean, there's all kinds of resources available. At this point, White selects a very improper plan. And we'll talk about why in a moment. But what White should just do is play knight f3 and castle, and it's a game of chess. But what White does is play c5, and White is going to regret not castling here, as we will see. Now, what is he trying to do with c5? Okay, well, for one, you're shutting in this bishop. Okay, two, you're trying to seize a little space on the queen side. Maybe ideally like to get his pawns way up here, and Black can't do anything on the queen side, okay? Maybe that's the idea. I don't think Black reacted quite the correct way, but it worked out well. Black should just castle and prepare to get an e5 break in at some point. You meet a wing attack with a play in the center. Eventually, Black's going to get a pawn chain here. Here's his pawn chain, and your objective is to attack in the direction of the pawn chain point. So it's calling for an e5 move to come in. White, in turn, after eventual c6, will be playing maybe for b5. But still, there's what Black does is okay. He's immediately challenging those pawns, and so maybe this works out. And now Black chooses to castle, which is wise. Get your king to safety. And now here comes the counterattack on the pawns, and suddenly White's in a little bit of a pickle here. He can't play a3 because pawn takes, and this exposes a pin. This is one of the drawbacks of trying to grab space too quick. So White elects to play bishop d2 and defend his pawn chain this way, but this is just going to lead to some trouble here, and we'll see how in a moment. Okay, so takes. Now at some point, the h8 a1 diagonal is going to open if bishop takes or if pawn takes. And here it comes. Now that diagonal is open, and Black picks up a tempo on the bishop, develops a piece and picks up a tempo. So both sides have 3 pieces developed, but Black's castled and White isn't. White also has to take care of that bishop, and he does so by protecting it with his queen. But maybe he goes to the wrong square. If you're going to protect it with the queen, don't go to another square where you can get tempoed. Okay, come to b3. That's probably a little safer. So I'm going to call the culprit here moving too quick without proper analysis. And now what happens is knight e4. Now there's a tempo, and what's important about this tempo is it clears f6 for this bishop. And I was talking about this h8 a1 diagonal. This is going to spell trouble for White here real quick. So White parks the queen over on b2, and Black just picks up the bishop and now parks his own bishop on f6. And look what we have. We have a trapped man here that can't get out. What can I say? So White interposes a piece, but it's not going to be enough, as we will see. Black attacks the queen. Now the queen's under fire again. How many times has the queen been attacked? And it's kind of limited to where she can go. She can't go back to c3 or d2, and can't go anywhere on the b file, and can't go to c4. So it only leaves the a file, and you got to pick a square here. Okay, and White elects to play it in a4. But the drawback with going to a4 is it pitches this pawn on c5. And now the queen's under duress again. And lo and behold, the queen goes all the way back to where she started on D1. So she's been in kind of an adventure here. Queen D2 took her, came there, and came back. Black is a clear pawn ahead in development, and it's his move. So black develops his queen, and here white decides to shut down some of the pressure on that diagonal. And now bishop a6. And here, once again, white just commits a really bad move. White needs to castle. Okay, we're at move 18, and white still hasn't castled. I mean, you can castle in 4 moves. It's rare that someone castles in 4 moves, but usually by move 7 or 8, and most likely by move 10, you've castled your king. So what kind of boggles my mind is that white not only neglects castling, but he plays a move that makes castling illegal. And then black sees to it that it'll never be possible. You got to admire white for trying to open up the position, but trying maybe he thinks he sees something, but this is just a bad move. Okay, maybe let's see what is he hoping for? Pawn takes, knight takes, bishop takes. Well, then the d4 knight is hanging. White can just take this pawn if he wants, and he's attacking this knight. I just don't understand it, but black has a better move. Black just drops the knight in with check, and if you didn't notice, even if he doesn't check him, this bishop is making sure white can't castle. So now, unless white wants to pitch his queen for a minor piece, he's got to move the king, and rather than step into a discovery, he brings his king to the center. So now black pretty much has a forced win here. So here comes a check, and interposed with a pawn, and suddenly black looks at this, does a little calculating, and says, hey, look, I can sacrifice. And when you're analyzing a correspondence game, forcing moves are easy to analyze. You can reach this position on a board, on a analysis board, and then look at it and see, well, where does black put his king? He's got 2 squares, e2 and c2. And if he goes to e2, it's mate and 1, queen f2. That's easy to see. That leaves c2. And c2 fails to a different similar mate on the other side. Rook b2 mate. Game over. So what did white do wrong? In this position, white embarked on a faulty plan, which backfired on him. It just exposed all of his whole game, and he never got castled. Okay, so let's bring up the other game. They played 2. See how this one goes. Flip the board. Okay, so same opening, queen pawn opening, but now becomes the French defense. And the exchange, you generally see this on the lower rating levels. It's perfectly fine for black, but he needs to take with the pawn. You want to take back with the pawn so that your French bishop is free, okay? This allows white just a free development. He's going to gain a tempo here on that queen in a minute. Usually you do it by knight c3 and you run into a pin with bishop b4. It's similar, a lot of respects, to a Scandinavian. Some respects to a Nimzovich defense where white plays 3, e takes d5, but usually this pawn is able to come up to e5. Here it's stuck on e6. So white elects to tempo with the pawn, and queen check, and then another check. And now black doesn't have to take this knight. This knight is not threatening to take this queen. Okay, it will be in a moment after white either breaks the pin by blocking the diagonal or by castling. I think it's better for black to develop a piece here. Wait and see, who knows? Maybe white will play a3 and lose the tempo. Okay, so there was no need to take this right now. And now he develops the piece. And here white misses potentially a very good move, bishop a3. Much on the theme of the other game, and suddenly black can't castle. Whoops. See, this is why black should have developed a piece and waited just a move. Let's back up and see the difference. Okay. Uh, what I was saying was knight f6. Now, we already know, like I was saying, if you lose a tempo, then you take here and you take here. Now it's black's move. It's not white's move. It's black's move. Black can castle now. And white is unable to play bishop a3 because his pawn is in the way. Now let's suppose white doesn't play a3. Okay, fine. He'll castle. Now bishop takes, pawn takes, and now you can castle. You're free to castle. So black jumped the gun by taking on c3, and white missed a chance to park his bishop on a3. So anyway, white did not play bishop a3. He castled. That allows black to castle. But this queen is still going to get tempoed here, and here it comes. Just it's exposed piece. And white just continues his development. Black tries to redirect his forces over towards the king's side. Now he finds bishop a3. It's got a new plan in mind. It's pinning this knight. But black covers that. And then white decides to try to break the center open. Black can't take the pawn. He's going to lose a piece. So black's trying to figure out how to get his bishop developed. But, the bishop could just develop to d7. I don't know why he played b6, but he did. Now here comes the tempo on the queen again. That gets blocked. And here white elects to take that knight off. And it doesn't look like black's doing all that badly here, except he doesn't really have any coordination with his... come back here, screen. He doesn't really have any coordination with his pieces. The knight's back on d8. It needs to get back in the game by way of either d6 or f6. The bishop on c8 doesn't really have a diagonal to go to. I guess it could go to a6 and try to menace c4. And the rook is completely shut out of play, and the queen's over here acting by herself, but it's white's move. So white plays queen a4 and threatens a mate in 1. Black develops his bishop and guards it. Queen a4 also stopped bishop a6. But now, every time you move up anything, you weaken a square. In this case, black's given up protection of the d7 square, so white penetrates with his queen and looking pretty good. Now, idea is to play here and maybe here. Okay. Overprotecting c7. But this is not a very good rook. And white just parks his bishop down on e7 and infests the black position. This takes squares away from... Well, the knight's already taking these squares away. I'm not quite sure why he did bishop e7. I might have played queen e7. But then queen e7 just bring the knight back in play. But bishop e7 was played, and we'll see it. And now I think black just played right into white's hands. Knight f6. If you're going to allow a doubled pawns, or triple pawns in this case, why not bring the queen back first? Well, I don't know. Then maybe if knight h4, you're on this pawn. Yeah, I guess this is what white's planning. He's planning knight h4. So black stops that, but at the price of getting the cost of getting tripled pawns. And now this knight just finds a beautiful square on d4, and now f4 is under fire. So black takes a moment and saves the pawn. And this next move is kind of, I didn't expect that move. What's he trying to do? Play c5? I guess he's trying to play c5. Now black's desperately seeking counterplay, but white just chomps on the free pawn. And now he decides the rook's probably better on the e-file. And black's just carefully trying to regroup, but all black's pieces are passive and white's are active. Here comes the knight. He's heading for a very nice outpost, f5. And now this move is tantamount to resigning, because now comes knight e7 check, and white wins the exchange, or the quality as it's known in other parts of the world. King h8, knight takes, and you can't take with the queen because queen takes, bishop takes, rook e8 checks, so maybe this king had to go to h7. Although he becomes exposed over there. This queen check, king here. Now take this, take back, pick up this. White's just easily winning this. Anyway, clearly Rock 2907 had him outmanned and played some very nice moves in these games. Couple things to maybe tighten it up a bit, but overall a nice performance. And I'm working on getting caught up with all the games. I'll get there. And thanks so much for your time of watching this video. I'll come back for the rest. This is going to be a great series. Take care. Bye now.